Good evening. This is Dimitri Lascaris coming to you from Kalamata, Greece on May 22nd, 2025 for Reason to Resist. Today, it's our great pleasure to be joined from Palestine by Rehab Nazzal. Rehab is a Palestinian-Canadian artist who resides in the town of Bethlehem in the occupied West Bank. She's currently teaching graduate students at Dar al-Kalima University in Bethlehem. Her most recent documentary, Vibrations, documents the devastating impact of Israel's bombings of Gaza on deaf children. Vibrations was released just a couple of months before Israel's genocidal assault on Gaza began in October 2023 and has since received 11 awards, including the Short Film Award at the 2024 BFI London Film Festival. Her most recent book is Smooth in Dark Times. Thank you very much for joining us again, Rehab.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So to begin our discussion today, Rehab, I'd like to ask you perhaps a somewhat personal question. In 1986, and we're going to return to this in the course of our discussion today, the Mossad murdered your brother, Khaled, in the streets of Athens, not far from where I'm currently situated. At the time, Khaled was the Central Committee Secretary of the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine. In 2015, you yourself were shot by an Israeli sniper in Bethlehem in the occupied West Bank. And at the time, you were photographing the odious activities of an Israeli skunk truck. And although you are a Canadian citizen, the government of Justin Trudeau, despite our repeated requests for help, did nothing to vindicate your rights or to hold Israel accountable for the shooting. Despite all of this and so much more that I could mention, you have remained in occupied Palestine throughout this genocide that we have witnessed in horror. Thanks to your Canadian citizenship, I imagine you could have sought refuge elsewhere, including in Canada, but you did not do so. Why have you remained there despite the dangers confronting you?
I do this because I can. There are 6 million Palestinians who can't return to their homes. And I can. My family is here. I grew up here. And I can help. And if I can't help in such conditions, such circumstances of genocide and ethnic cleansing, then when can I help? I know the Palestinian communities around the world, the Palestinian refugees, our supporters are doing incredible job and they're paying prices, many. But being here as a witness, myself as an artist, first of all, I can give to the Palestinian students, I can contribute to the community, and I am a witness to the horrors that's happening here. And as much as I can, I document these horrors. Jenin refugee camp, for months and months, I documented stories there inside it, the camp itself. And now, for the past 100 and almost 20 days, it's off limit, it's destroyed, it's different. It's like being wiped out. So these documents have a value. So I would consider myself that I am contributing to preserving our narrative, our history, and being a witness again.
Mm-hmm. During the course of these 19 months, I frankly amazed that you have been unscathed given the barbarism we're witnessing and prior attacks by the Israeli military on you and your family. Have you felt any particular attention was being directed at you, that you were under an unusual threat by, the standards that prevailed before this genocide began? And if not, why do you think that's the case? Why do you think that up until now, I realize I'm asking you to speculate, but I'm curious what your thoughts are, that why you haven't been targeted up until now, despite your, extraordinary documenting of the crimes that the Israelis are committing?
Well, first of all, there are many journalists and photojournalists who are targeted. They're either in prison or being shot. One of our students, a journalist who graduated from our university, he was shot, targeted, and just miraculously he survived. Why they don't target me or when they will target me, I believe there is a kind of protection from my community. And I mean my community, I mean the artist community around the world and the activists community as well. Like, what would be my crime? I am photographing reality, so that would be the crime. I mean, several times I came very close to being shot in Tubas once the soldiers, when we were in a taxi, they start randomly shooting, and the taxi driver, he just was very smart, turning away. At checkpoints, always in your face, the gun. So you would look at the gun and wonder of that finger, the soldiers, and they are very young usually, if it's gonna kill you. But I don't think of myself, I'll be honest with you. I mean, the scenes emerging from Gaza, it just kills you. And yeah, what is the value of anything while those innocent kids being burned and killed and orphaned and starving to death? The last thing I think about, it's myself. Um, yeah.
Well, 1 week ago, Rehab, The Guardian published an article which revealed that in the 1970s, Western intelligence agencies gave to the Mossad information which it used to track and kill Palestinians, sometimes in Western countries, as happened to your brother Khaled here in Greece. This information was discovered in the archives of Switzerland by a researcher named Aviva Gutmann. The Guardian article said that 18 Western intelligence agencies were involved, but it only identified 6 of them: the UK, the US, France, Switzerland, Italy, and West Germany. After reading the article, I was curious about the identity of the other intelligence agencies, so I emailed Ms. Gutmann and asked her to identify all of them. And here's how she responded. She kindly responded very promptly to my request. And she said, not all 18 intelligence agencies assisted Mossad in equal measure, but I'm happy to provide you with a list of the 18 countries that were part of the Kilowatt Group. And that's what they called this nefarious group of Western intelligence agencies that provided information about Palestinians to the Mossad. And it was about Palestinians specifically living in Europe. So the complete list is Belgium, Denmark, France, the UK, Italy, Israel, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, Germany. And then she says at the end, while Austria, Australia, Canada, Ireland, Sweden, and Norway were regularly included in Kilowatt correspondence if it concerned them, it is not currently known which of these agencies was part of Kilowatt. So apparently they were sending information. I mean, the one that really struck me here, I'm not so surprised about Canada, but Ireland, that was quite surprising. In any case, that's the information she provided to me about these 18 Western intelligence agencies. Given what happened to your brother, Rehab, I'm most interested in knowing what is your reaction to these revelations?
Yeah, I had a look at that article actually, and I wasn't surprised. We speculated that my brother once was in Germany, and he told me he survived an attempt to assassinate him. And then in Greece, with the fake passports, and Canada was involved in many of these assassinations, providing fake passports to those assassins. I believe in 2010, Mahmoud al-Mabhouh in Qatar, um, in the Gulf, in one of the countries there, um, because of the surveillance, very intensive there, they recorded, I guess, over 20 individuals who were involved in the assassination, and they revealed their identities. So several countries, the intelligence helped. The myth about the Mossad, it's powerful and the most powerful, that's the myth in the world. It's really not true. Not even close to the truth. It's the Western intelligence agencies who provided all the support and the logistics and the information. And they are complicit as Israel in these assassinations. My brother in Greece, the Greek government is responsible, because how could they rent cars and motorcycles with fake identity and escape from the country? How could they? And it is in the public. He was shot in front of a hotel. You could tell there is a complicity. And it's states that are complicit. This creates the anger and the rage, especially at this time, because the lies continue about the spread across the mainstream media about what's happening here. We watch news like our news that we circulate. If you look at the Western mainstream media, it's normalizing genocide, basically. The conditions now, unprecedented. I would say unprecedented. The power of killing. Don't tell me the Second World War. No. A 200-ton bomb, or the burning of people who are asleep or were alive. No, we haven't witnessed this. No. And governments and their mainstream media, their public relation agencies now, devoid of any ethics of journalism, they're silent and they are complicit in the genocide now. So the assassination, if I go back to that point, Israel now is using a different technology of assassination. What happened in Beirut, where in the Canadian Parliament someone made fun of the Bajors, if you remember, that's a horrendous crime. To use a civil tool in the hands of people in public spaces and kill them from distance. So now the assassination capability of Israel is even worse. They send drones, they're called assassination drones, small ones, and they explode along with the surveillance. But at the time, in the 70s and 80s, you have teams of 15 or 20 who are engaged in the assassination.
Mm-hmm. I think you make a number of very important points, but one I want to highlight, and which I stress quite a bit in my discussions about Israel. We're constantly led to believe that Israel is not only its intelligence agencies, but its economy is, one of the world's most sophisticated, technologically advanced economies, and its military is one of the world's most powerful militaries. I think that this is just a smokescreen, that this is a part of their supremacist ideology. They want us to believe that this little country has extraordinary, almost superhuman capabilities, but in fact, it's just an outpost for Western imperialism. And you could just as easily call the Mossad, MI6 or the CIA. It's essentially the same thing. And you could just as easily call, the Israeli Defense Forces NATO. Without the West supporting Israel's military and Western its intelligence agencies and its economy, it would be nothing. It would be absolutely nothing, and it would probably be wiped off the face of the map. I suspect you would agree with those observations.
Absolutely. I mean, if there is now an economic and military embargo imposed on Israel, it would collapse in 1 month. In 1 month. It's tied its economy, its financial institutions, its military, like the parts of F-35, for example, their warplanes. If you don't provide these parts, these warplanes won't be able to fly and drop over Gaza these weapons. If you don't supply these rockets and these bombs, uh, I mean, even civil corporations are complicit. Like the Caterpillar provides the bulldozers. I mean, there is a difference between really Gaza and the West Bank. It's less intense, the ethnic cleansing in here and the genocidal violence. But the bulldozers, for example, they play a role, significant role. These are American creation, American development. So I am sure, I am certain it can't survive this state without all this support from the Western countries. Um, it's not standing on any values, on any foundations, and it is built on the ruins of the Palestinians, on the suffering of over 6 million Palestinian refugees. The narrative in the West, in academia, in the arts, in society, in the media is about the white victims only. But you have 77 years of 6 million Palestinians suffering, not allowed to go back to their houses. They have the keys to their houses destroyed, their cities, their villages. And the others are segregated, fragmented. I mean, we can talk about the West Bank. The situation is horrific, but because all the eyes again on Gaza, they're working here without any coverage discreetly.
Mm-hmm. This is one of the things that what you said is again so important. That's so maddening about the Western refusal to impose sanctions on Israel. You know, they've imposed 17 rounds of sanctions on Russia, but Russia's economy is so big, its resources are so extensive. This obviously is true of China as well. It's even true of Iran, right? These countries are so large, so well resourced that ultimately their sanctions, as brutal as they are, as hypocritical as they are, do not succeed in bringing the adversary to heel. But in Israel, it would be like that, just as you said. And they won't impose any sanctions, none. So they have a case where the most egregious human rights violator on earth, probably today, along with the United States and Britain, could be stopped so easily with sanctions, and they don't use them. But countries against which sanctions are ineffectual, they use them relentlessly, even though they're doing more damage to their own economies than they are. I mean, this is the utter insanity of it, Rehab. It just blows my mind. So I'd like to move on to something else you reminded me when you were talking about the ruined Palestinian villages. You and I, when I was in Palestine in 2016, one of the places that you took me to see was Canada Park.
That's right.
I understand that Canada Park recently suffered a quite serious setback in the wildfires. Could you tell us a little bit about what Canada Park is and what has happened to it?
Yeah, this story should be told over and over and over because it resembles other villages and towns. 3 towns around Jerusalem, Amwas, Beit Nuba, and Yalo, in 1967, not during the Nakba. In 1967, Israel occupied the villages and forced 10,000 Palestinians, inhabitants of these villages, on foot. They forced them with machine guns to leave. After they left, they demolished the 3 villages. And one of the soldiers testified they actually brought trucks and took the beautiful stones of the villas there to build settlements in other places, colonies. Then in the late 70s, the Jewish National Fund of Canada, they built or established a recreational park exclusively for Israelis over the ruins of these villages. Recently, of course, this is war crime. Canada is complicit in it, and the longest list. The list is very long because there are so many names of Canadians who contributed, and you don't know what contributed to. The removal of the houses, of the stones, building spaces for people to camp, or planting flowers, or removing the Palestinian indigenous trees and flora. You don't know what their contribution was. It's all crimes. Recently, during the heat, yes, a fire broke there, and it believes some campers were barbecuing. And it broke and it spread so fast, so massively, because the whole Zionist project, when they began destroying Palestinians' towns and villages and building colonies, the colonies, they want them to resemble European urban spaces. So they planted trees that are not indigenous to Palestine. These trees, with heat, they become a source of fire even. So it spread all over. I mean, the irony, a few years ago, also another fire in the mountains of Jerusalem, it really several kilometers of fire, and it revealed the villages underneath. It revealed the Palestinian terraces, the stone terraces that Palestinians built. It's like the fire exposed the crime. So that's what happened at Canada Park, or what's called Canada Park.
So, so it sounds like the use of non-Indigenous trees by this Canadian-funded JNF branch contributed quite significantly to the destruction of Canada Park. I guess there may be such a thing as karma after all. In any case, I'd like to ask you next about some extraordinary, well, I guess they're not so extraordinary when one considers the history of Israel, but in a sane, civilized world, these events would be extraordinary. And that is 2 days ago, there were diplomats from 25 countries, many of them European and also from Canada. And they were in Jenin, and they were surveying the damage, apparently. And during the course of their inspection of what Israeli forces had done, the Israeli forces began firing upon them.
جيش الاحتلال يطلق النار على الوفد خلال تواجدنا، يطلق النار بشكل مباشر هي جيش الاحتلال لا زال يطلق النار باتجاه الوفد الدبلوماسي من القناصل والسفراء بين الدول.
Later, although no one was injured, they had to run for cover. And later, the Israeli military apologized and, said that these were warning shots and so forth. What do you know? I mean, this is what I'm reading in the Western press. What do you know about what happened in Jenin to these diplomats? And why do you think this was done?
Yeah, my friends and relatives told me this delegation, and it has 3 Arabs from 3 Arab countries who have peace treaty with the state of Israel.
Maybe I want to pause. I left out one important fact, Rehab, and that is your family's from the city of Jenin.
Yeah, I travel. Yes, exactly.
So sorry, please continue.
I traveled back and forth. So 3 delegations, 3 members were from Egypt, Morocco, and Jordan. And these 3 countries are supportive of Israel, the regimes, not the people. to public. So they were among these. They did not enter Jenin refugee camp. They were at the edge because Israel, it turned the entire camp into a military zone with gates and dirt mounds. No one can enter. So they got close to one of the gates, close, and that's when they shot at them. I was in a building and they shot at us while I'm photographing. No one could get in. It's the camp that you and I went through. It's empty entirely. 600 buildings and homes destroyed, blown to the ground. And the people are, and you're talking about 25,000 Palestinians from the camp. A great number of them, at least 8,000, in the campus of the Arab American University. They have residencies there. And with these conditions, there are many empty buildings. So many of them live there. And in the surrounding villages, Kabati, Burkeen, Sili, so the people are there. It's like it reminds them of what their parents and grandparents went through, the Nakba of 48. They are waiting to go back, all of them. What the Israelis are doing inside the camp, that's what we hear, enlarging, building streets wide for bulldozers, for military vehicles. They planning to build a permanent station. But the justification, if I go back, the justification of the Israeli government that apologizes, that they reached an area off limit. It is so laughable, this explanation, because what is off limit? Like, this is a Palestinian refugee in the West Bank, occupied. What's off limit for whom? That's the justification. At the same time, when I read the news, immediately I thought of Shireen Abu Akleh. And I thought of what the Israelis actually justified at the beginning of her shooting live on our screens. That's the state of Israel. They can lie and lie and lie.
I understood that Jenin, the refugee camp, was the most populous refugee camp in the occupied West Bank and one of the largest Palestinian refugee camps. And I understood you to say that it's now entirely empty. There's no one, none of the residents has remained?
No one. No one.
And so where else have they fled? Where are these refugees now? You mentioned one place. I think you said the residence is at a nearby university. Yeah. I mean, that there are many thousands who are left, who are not there. Where do you think they've gone?
I told you the villages around Jenin, Burkeen, Silet, Harthi, Arabi, Abad, Kabati, whoever has a daughter married somewhere or a relative somewhere, it's terrible. Like, you and I went to Kabati, for example, there is about at least 4,000 in one neighborhood where my sister is. And immediately they welcomed them because, the economic conditions for the people in Jenin is much better than in the refugee camps. So they helped them, and their children now going to school, but they're waiting to go back to their homes. And everything they left in their homes, their money, their jewelry, their valuables, their photographs, a woman told me, everything is stolen or burned or destroyed entirely. For them,
sorry. Please continue. Please continue.
No, it's a Nakba for them, especially those in Jenin refugee camp. It's not the largest, really, because there is Balata now. Balata refugee camp, they're doing almost similar to what they did in Jenin. Also here in the Haitian refugee camp, every night they enter. Al Ain, Al Jalazon, all the refugee camps are targeted. And when they distribute, the Israelis, they distribute flyers warning the refugees, if you do anything, even throwing stones, you will meet the fate of Jenin refugee camp, as if they used it as an example for other refugees. So that's what's happening in Jenin refugee camp. I visited the families in the university, and I see some of them. I communicate through the phone, and so resilient, Dimitri. Like in the university campus, I went to visit one of the friends I used to know there in the camp. Her daughter is making chocolate. She learned how to make chocolate and wrap it very well. And it's so good and well done. And she sells it because they need income. They need to live. The father is making sandwiches. The mother is a hair designer. She found a place. People help each other. Like she gets just a hair dryer, and she is now expanding. These people are just, an example for the world. They teach us our resilience, and they empower us, and they're amazing.
I've said this before, I'll say it again, Rehab. I think we're witnessing one of the greatest, if not the greatest act of collective resistance in the modern era, and quite possibly in all of human history. I mean, I'm absolutely in awe of the perseverance of the Palestinians, not only in Gaza, but obviously in the West Bank and in the Palestinian refugee camps in Lebanon and so forth. I want to, before we close out, I have two questions for you. The first one is, the last time we spoke, which was, I think, 2 or 3 months ago, I asked you for any updates on the children and the adults whom you met and interviewed during the course of producing Vibrations in Gaza, just before the genocidal rampage began. I understand that there have been some more tragic news relating to the people whom you met and interviewed. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah. It's like I lost members of my family. That's how I received the news first of Mossad, the young child who I met. He was 10, and he went to bring flour, to buy flour, to find flour for the family to make bread. They bombed him. They bombed the center where the people get food. He passed. In the film Vibrations from Gaza, I had a clip of Mossad playing. He was, because he's deaf, there's so much noise, he's playing 1 week after Israel's 21 attack on Gaza. And he was playing with little toys for little children, but holding 2 airplanes crashing with each other and doing this gesture. It just, he was killed by an actual, real warplane. And the girl, the main figure in the film, Amani, who's the eldest child of her mom and dad. She has 2 other younger siblings. And the father was so much close to those kids, much more than the mother, especially Amani. He dropped her at the makeshift center of Atfaluna in Gaza City. And he told them he'll come back in 2 hours to pick her up. He never came back. He was killed in one of the horrific bombings. So the girl is just suffering, really. I am trying to be in touch directly with her, but through others, I've been with her and her mother. A teacher who was the interpreter for me in the film, she's telling me we look at each other and We say farewell to each other because we don't know what minute we're going to die. She said, we now have no food whatsoever, so we crush lentils and make bread out of it, or macaroni. We crush it and make bread. It's horrific, this starvation. And it's also a joke that a few trucks are allowed. It's not going to solve this problem. And yes, in the thousands, the number of kids and babies who will die if this is not resolved. While Israeli ministers here, Smotrich and Ben-Gvir in particular, warning that they won't allow food. They want everyone to die in Gaza. And the world is war.
This brings me to my last and most important question. As we've been discussing on our program this week, there was, on the surface, a rather notable change in the tone of Western media coverage and Western political commentary on the genocide in this month. So, for example, you saw major UK media organizations like The Economist, The Financial Times, The Independent, Sky News, denouncing Israel for the very first time in strident terms, even hypocritically accusing the West of having been silent. You've had a remarkable statement by France, Canada, and the United Kingdom that they will sanction Israel and or take what they call concrete actions if it doesn't allow humanitarian aid in sufficient quantities into Gaza. You had the UK government suspending trade talks with Israel, and the European Union voting, although it wasn't unanimous by any means, to review the association agreement between the European Union and Israel. At the same time, you've given us a sense of just how horrific things are. I think many in our audience will already have a pretty good sense of that. How do you feel today about the survival prospects of your brothers and sisters in Gaza? Do you think that they will survive this, or do you think the way things are currently headed, there's little hope for their survival in the months ahead?
They will survive. The loss is tremendous, is horrific, is great, but they will survive. The power these people have, take, for example, at the beginning of the genocide, Israel bombed a tunnel in the middle, and 2 people were stranded in the tunnel for 26 days. They have a few dates with them. They divide the date between each of them for 26 days. And water from the ground they managed to find. The belief, the strong belief, the steadfastness, the 7 decades of suffering as refugees in Gaza, that's what gives them power. And that's my personal belief. They will survive. And I hope I am right. I hope, but that's what I think.
For what it's worth, my friend, I absolutely agree with you, 100%. I have no doubt, actually, that they will survive. Although the way things are going, they will have to pay a heavier price, even beyond the unimaginable one they've already paid, in order to overcome this monster.
But the West, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. The only thing I want to say, Rehab, is that it has to be said as often as possible, is that the Palestinian people have rendered a great service to humanity in many ways. But one that's so important to me as a citizen of the West is that they've revealed, to a degree that none of us really understood, just how evil the people are who govern us. There is no atrocity that is beneath them. And this is very important for us to understand, because if they get away with this, I don't believe they will, but if they get away with it, we are next. What little remains of our freedom and democracy in the West will be taken away from us, because they will be emboldened by this heinous crime and their impunity. And the Palestinian people have given us a great insight and a warning about what lay ahead, the danger for all of humanity. And for that, we should be eternally grateful to them.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dimitri. But also the pressure on these governments, if we go back to your point about the European countries, the pressure, it's not that suddenly the European Union or other governments suddenly woke up. It's over 19 months has been the genocide. But because of the people on the ground, they're acting, they're protesting, they're pressuring these governments. So yes, they fear from their constituents, from their people, these governments. And that's great, which means we need to put more pressure on these governments. But don't forget, Dimitri, settler colonialism in the West was brutal. Maybe the difference that now there is a technology, a communication technology that exposes things live, reveals it. It wasn't in the 16th, 17th, 1800s, but the crimes were horrible. And here, another difference is the killing machines, the technology of killing. We've never experienced this as humanity. So, yes. But yes, Western white supremacy has a long history. Our indigenous people, we feel actually with them. We feel how they endured the theft of their land, the elimination of millions and millions of them in order to steal their land, because it's happening here in the West Bank. The settlers, the settler state, army and armed settlers, they stole equivalent to 70% of Gaza since the beginning of genocide, and expanding the colonies and building new ones. Everywhere you go in the West Bank, you find a post here and there. So eliminate the people and expropriate their land. That's the goal. It was, and it is now as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Please stay safe, my friend. It's always a great pleasure talking to you. And I know you have a great admiration of our audience, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Take care.
Take care. And we're signing off from Kalamata in Bethlehem.